Hello and welcome to another episode of the Attack the Rack podcast. I am your host, Curtis Leslie, and you are tuning in to the number one rated podcast on the planet by people that rated it number one. So I was going to have a guest today, but due to the blizzard we are currently in the middle of here in West Michigan, my guest was unable to make it over here to the Get to Two media studios, so it is just going to be me today. This episode is actually going to be coming out Saturday morning, December the 24th, also known as Christmas Eve, rather than the typical Monday release, because in this episode I want to talk about the NFL weekend and the NBA Christmas Day games, and I don't want to release the podcast on Monday after all those games have been played. So then more than likely we'll be back to the normal Monday schedule the following week. The following week will actually be 2023. I'm very excited for what's coming to the Attack the Rack YouTube channel in 2023, in particular the podcast here. I've already got a lot of great guests lined up covering a number of topics. Today, in addition to talking NFL and NBA, we're also going to talk a little bit about the latest antics from University of Michigan head basketball coach Juwan Howard. But before we get into all of that, we need to take a second and give a big thanks to today's sponsor. Do you live in a climate where snow is prevalent? Do you live in a climate where you are forced to park your car outside, even if it's just from time to time? If you answered yes, or kind of yes, or sometimes to these questions, you've got to get yourself a snow brush. What an incredible product a snow brush is, and it's real easy to use. On one end of the implement is a brush. All you do is use the brush to swipe the snow right off your vehicle. Now you may be asking yourself, but Curtis, what happens if there's ice on your car? A brush won't get off the ice. Well, certainly you are right about that. But on the other end of the implement is a scraper that can be used to get off all those tough and stubborn forms of ice on the windows of your vehicle. If you do not have a snow brush, go get one now. Well, not right now, but after you finish listening to this podcast, or listen on your way to the store. All right, welcome. I really appreciate all of you for listening. The Attack the Rack YouTube channel is continuing to grow, and it would not be doing so without all of you. So the NFL season is really winding down, and there are some teams fighting hard to get into the playoffs. One of the greatest stories of the second half of the season, actually the season as a whole really, is the Detroit Lions. The Lions started the season 1-6, and it looked like the same old Lions. And not just because of the record, but also because of the way they were losing. So many close games, losing right at the end due to their own mishaps. Well, the Lions are now 7-7 after going 6-1 in their last 7 games. If the Lions win out, they should make the playoffs, and their final 2 games of the season here are very winnable, unless, of course, they return to the same old Lions. And if they do, that would be totally the same old Lions thing to do. Head coach Dan Campbell is now a plus 175 to win Coach of the Year in Vegas. Just 3 weeks ago, he was plus 25,000. And as mentioned before on this channel, certainly Dan Campbell has made some decisions that have cost the Lions games. And without some of those decisions, the Lions would be a shoo-in for the playoffs rather than having to win out. But Dan Campbell has the team playing well. Obviously, he's doing something right. He seems to be a relationship guy and is able to get the most out of his players, including quarterback Jared Goff. Wow, Jared Goff has been incredible the last 8 weeks. In his last 8 games, Goff has thrown just 1 interception compared to 12 touchdowns. Overall, he's tied for 8th in the league with 23 touchdown passes, and he has just 7 interceptions this season. He's also 9th in the league in passing yards and 6th in the league in quarterback rating. This, combined with the Lions' ability to establish the run, has them looking like if they do get into the playoffs, they might just be a favorite to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. The Lions already showed they can play with the best 2 teams in the NFC, at least record-wise. The Philadelphia Eagles have the best record at 13-1, and the Lions nearly beat them in Week 1. They lost 38-35, but that was back when they were the same old Lions. The Minnesota Vikings have the second best record in the NFC at 11-3, and the Lions just beat them. They should have beaten them twice if not for one of those bad Dan Campbell decisions. They lost 28-24 back in September. And then you look at the New York Giants. They are more than likely in the playoffs, and the Lions beat them at their place a few weeks ago. More than likely, the last playoff spot will come down to Washington or Detroit. Detroit beat Washington, so if for some crazy reason it comes down to a tiebreaker, the Lions are in. Oh, I did forget about the Seattle Seahawks. They are also 7-7. And the Lions did lose to them 48-45 back in Week 4 and would therefore hold the tiebreaker over them. But the Seahawks play the Chiefs on Sunday, and if the Chiefs win, that would probably eliminate them from contention. Washington is on the road at San Francisco, which is certainly a favorable matchup for the 49ers. A loss would put Washington at 7-1, and if the Lions can win on the road at Carolina, that would put them at 8-7 and would slide them into the playoffs with 2 games to go. The Lions-Panthers game is Saturday, along with 10 other games. There will only be 3 games on Sunday, which is Christmas Day, and the NFL will be competing with the NBA as they showcase 5 games, including a big matchup between the Bucks and the Celtics at 5 p.m. The day starts off at noon with the 76ers and Knicks. Every team playing on Sunday is at least 500 except for the Lakers and Warriors. The Lakers are at Dallas and the Warriors are home against the Grizzlies. Before we get into more NBA, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back with more of the Attack Iraq podcast. And we are back. So back to some NBA stuff. What a dumpster fire the Lakers are again this season. How can a team with that much talent be under 500? This is proof that Michael Jordan is hands down better than LeBron James. If you take LeBron off that team and replace him with Michael, there's no way the Lakers are under 500. In fact, with Michael, they would probably win the NBA championship. None of the matchups on Christmas Day excite me at all. I mean, I know you have the most popular teams playing and the teams in the big markets playing, but don't you think they should line the day up with rivalries? But I guess that would be hard since there are no NBA rivalries anymore. There's no Pistons Bulls. There's no Lakers Celtics or Celtics 76ers. There's no rivalries. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, NBA players are all friends. They all hang out together. And then also they're always switching teams all the time and joining up with other players, other good players to create these super teams. Players don't play for a team anymore for 6 or 7, 8 years, building a rivalry with another team that has the same players for 6 or 7, 8 years. Players aren't able to build pride with a team if they're leaving every 2 or 3 years. Today's NBA is completely watered down, boring, and not competitive at all. And speaking of the NBA, former longtime NBA player and now head basketball coach at University of Michigan, Juwan Howard, has been involved in yet another on-court incident where he's behaved like a buffoon. During an 80-76 loss to North Carolina, Juwan Howard was upset with a call made by the officials and threw a temper tantrum. A couple of his players needed to restrain him, which he did not like. It looked like he even kind of, I don't want to necessarily say elbowed one of the players, but definitely, fought away their restraints. And this incident comes just 10 months after Howard assaulted a University of Wisconsin assistant coach after a game in which Michigan beat Howard's Wolverines. The latest incident is actually the third time we've seen Howard act in a rage of anger. In the 2021 Big Ten tournament, Juwan Howard received 2 technicals and an ejection after nearly starting a riot with Maryland head coach Mark Turgeon and the Terrapins. Currently, Michigan has an underwhelming 7-4 record, and with incidents like this, you got to wonder how many chances does Juwan get. And I love Juwan Howard. He was a member of the Fab Five at the University of Michigan in the early 90s. Those teams still remain my favorite teams of any sport all time, but I'm sorry. What profession can you assault someone and keep your job? I believe Howard should have been fired after that incident against Wisconsin last season, especially since he showed no remorse. I don't ever remember Juwan Howard behaving like this ever as a player. He had a long, successful NBA career, and I don't remember him acting out like this at all. I watched every game he played in college, and I never saw him act this way. He was a gentle giant. Hopefully a little Christmas cheer will set him straight, and we won't see any more behavior like this. One other thing I wanted to quick touch on, and I know it's been a week or so, but I wanted to mention Mike Leach and his unfortunate, untimely passing. The Mississippi State head football coach died of heart complications at the young age of 61. I don't think I ever really watched him actually coach a game, but I can honestly say he is one of my favorite all-time coaches and also one of my all-time favorite people. I have multiple times been sucked into video after video after video of Mike Leach talking about anything and everything on YouTube. And I highly recommend you do the same. Mike Leach was a truth seeker and a truth teller. And one of the many few in this realm of sports that he's in, this fame that he has, where he's a big-time coach. You do not see big-time coaches, athletes, Hollywood elites speak in the nature that Mike Leach did in regards to seeking truth and speaking the truth. It's hard not to watch a Mike Leach video and not learn something and also not have a big laugh. He always spoke with conviction and a lot of just natural humor. And again, if you have some downtime in the next couple of weeks for the holidays, I highly recommend you hop on YouTube, type Mike Leach in the search bar, and just sit back and enjoy. All right, so let's close out this episode talking about Christmas movies. Now, as you know from listening to the podcast, you know I'm big on lists. I like top 5 lists. If I have a guest on the program, I end each episode with asking them for their top 5 all-time favorite basketball players. So far, it's been basketball players because all of my guests have been basketball coaches. And I also asked them their top 5 basketball movies again, just because so far all my guests have been basketball coaches. And then I end the conversation with asking them a top 5 list specific to them. For example, I know Zeeland East Varsity Boys basketball coach Jeff Carlson is a big movie buff and a Christmas buff. So when I had him on the program, I asked him what his top 5 favorite Christmas movies were. You know, I'm a little confused why none of these guests have returned the questions on me at all. But today I'm going to close out the program and 2022 by asking myself a question. What are my top 5 favorite Christmas movies of all time? I don't ask my guests to rank their top 5. I allow them to give me their list in no particular order. For this, I'm actually going to rank them for you. Coming in at number 5, made all the way back in 1964, the stop-motion animation version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You know the one with the abominable snowman, Hermie the elf, who wanted to be a dentist, and the island of misfit toys. This is a 1 hour long, made-for-TV movie that airs every Christmas season. And as a kid, I could not wait for it to air. I think when I was in middle school, I got a VHS of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and then I was able to watch it whenever I wanted. And yes, even as a teenager, I still watched it. In fact, I'm going to watch it today after I finish up with this podcast as a 42-year-old man. All right, so Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is number 5. Number 4 is Elf. I am a huge Will Ferrell fan, and this movie has everything you want in a Christmas movie. It has magic, holiday cheer, a bah humbug type character that ends up loving Christmas. And then you have the added bonus of Will Ferrell's humor. At number 3, I have A Christmas Story. This is an absolute classic, also from my childhood. It came out in 1983 and still airs multiple times per year, including 24 hours straight, I believe on TBS, starting at midnight, Christmas Eve night. This is a great story, also with a lot of humor and classic one-liners. I'm not sure if any of you have seen the new A Christmas Story that came out on HBO. It's pretty cool because it does feature many of the original characters as adults. However, other than that, I hate to say it, but it was a big swing and a miss. Now, did you know there's a connection between my number 3 rated movie, A Christmas Story, and my number 4 rated movie, Elf? The actor that played Ralphie in A Christmas Story, Peter Billingsley, also played Elf in the movie. Played an elf, sorry, not the elf. Played an elf in the movie Elf, and was also a co-producer. Pretty cool little connection there. All right, coming in at number 2 for me is not only a great Christmas movie, but also a great comedy, period. Starring the hilarious Chevy Chase, it's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. This movie is so good, Coach Carlson put it in his top 5 at 1st, 3rd, and 5th. And my number 1 Christmas movie of all time is none other than The Family Man, starring Nicolas Cage and Tia Leone. It also has a small but very important role played by the great Don Cheadle, who is one of my favorite actors. Another one of my favorite actors, Jeremy Piven, also has a small role in the film. All right, folks. Well, that will do it for this episode of the Attack the Rack podcast, and that will also do it for 2022. Again, this technically is the Monday, December 26th episode. We'll be back with the next episode after this on Monday, January 2, and that will be in the year 2023. Again, thank you all for listening. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I also want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And if you are in the Midwest and traveling, please be safe. It ain't nothing nice out there. I look forward to coming back with the next episode to kick off 2023. Thank you. Please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share.